Picture this. It's the year 2006. You're in high school and you just experienced your first alcoholic blackout, putting you in the hospital and making you realize way too early in life that you probably have an issue with substances. You have side bangs and you shop almost exclusively at Hot Topic. The majority of your time spent listening to music includes the likes of Brand New, Taking Back Sunday, and Senses Fail. You're me. Sorry to break the bad news. Today's video, as the title suggests, is about the healing power of music in sobriety. But to be honest, I think it's kind of safe to say that there's a healing power to music in all life situations. Like when I was in active addiction, bands such as the ones that I just mentioned seriously helped me get through the pain and wallow in it, admittedly. And there were so many other occasions in my life where music has seriously been like therapy to me. In this video, I'm going to share my own experience about how music has helped me get through some of the toughest times in my life, especially in sobriety. Then I'm going to talk nerdy to you about the research behind music as a tool for healing and how it might relate to sobriety or recovery. And then finally, I'm going to leave you guys off with a quick tip or tool that you can add to your sobriety toolbox if you would like to. So make sure to stay tuned until the very end, or else. Hello everybody, welcome to or welcome back to my channel. My name is Allie K. Campbell and I make videos about getting real, having fun, and living sober in no particular order. Every Wednesday I upload a new sobriety tool for my Sobriety Toolbox series, which is what you're watching right now. Having an effective set of tools to use throughout your sobriety and really throughout your life, whether you're new to sobriety or you're a seasoned vet, is super important. So if you want to keep building your own sobriety toolbox, make sure to subscribe to my channel and you can hit the bell so you get notifications every time I upload new content. But before I get to the goods, I want to give a big shout out and thank you to my most recent patrons on Patreon because they're making this video possible and all my videos possible. So thank you so much, Anna, Beth, Chris, Tess, Samantha, Rachel, Callie, I think that's how you say that, and Lauren for your support. You guys are the best. By the way, getting shout outs in my videos is only one of the many things that comes with signing up to be a patron. So if you want to support a queer, sober creator in her ongoing journey to not be a starving artist, then you can go check out my Patreon by clicking the link in the description of this video. Okay, now it's time. So before I film any of my videos, I like to make a little bit of an outline. It helps me to know what I'm going to talk about and what topics I want to hit on. Otherwise, I'm all over the place. And so as I was doing that for this episode, I was of course listening to music, lyricless EDM music specifically, because it really helps me to focus. You might even say that it's been instrumental in helping me cope with my ADD. Oh man, probably just lost a few patrons for that one. And I won't front, like I have a lot of issues. If you're not new to this channel, like you're probably well aware of that. And I have had a lot of issues, but few things have stood the test of time as long as music has, as like a go-to solution to help me get through something, no matter what the issue may be, or the severity of it. And outside of having a bunch of pop punk bands to help solidify my emo identity in high school, music also helped me get through active addiction without me even really realizing it. Because throughout most of my active addiction, not only did I have a bunch of undiagnosed or misdiagnosed mental health issues, but I was also emotionally numb at the time, a lot of the time. Music was probably one of the only things that made me feel safe and safe to get in touch with what I was possibly feeling. And even after getting sober, I still struggled with that whole numbness thing, and I still used music as a tool to tap back into my feelings because I knew that it had worked for me in the past. When I had gone through a really bad breakup, probably the worst one I had ever experienced, and I've been through a lot, I actually forced myself to listen to all of the songs that reminded me of my ex or the breakup, although it was torturous, because it helped me to release a lot of pent-up emotions. It was a healthy way for me to address what was going on since I no longer could do that with drugs and alcohol. After like months of not being able to walk through a grocery store in fear that I would hear a song that would make me burst out into tears in public, which had happened several times. I'm not embarrassed to admit that. Okay, maybe a little. There was also that time that I performed Fleetwood Mac's Dreams in rehab during music therapy class, which was surprisingly therapeutic, although I'm very happy that there's no footage of it. In my second year of sobriety, I heard Kesha's Praying, and Lord, let me tell you, I probably could save my parents thousands of dollars in therapy and hospital bills had I just like knew that song earlier and played it on repeat and, I don't know, maybe like journaled a bit. In fact, that whole album, Rainbow, is probably my top favorite of all time, not only because it has very powerful spiritual themes about redemption and healing and moving forward despite your past, but also because my addiction was reaching its peak around the same time that Kesha first came on the scene with that like very much party girl attitude.
Wake up in the morning and feeling like P. Diddy.
So it was kind of just like a full circle thing for me. You see how I kind of like defined my experience through the music I was listening to at the time. That goes to show the power of it, at least from my personal point of view. Different people have different tastes in different music. So maybe it affects them in different ways, which is part of what I wanted to look up when I started going into the research phase for this video. Let's take a look at what I found. I should have anticipated there being a shit ton of research on this topic, but I didn't. But my mind is seriously blown. There's been a ton of work done on the benefits of music from a cognitive standpoint, a social standpoint, a health standpoint, and even an educational standpoint. Say standpoint again, standpoint. I really only stuck to the studies that I could find that are specific to music as a tool for sobriety and recovery. For this particular video, there was enough research on the two topics combined for me to like just use that, which was actually really nice for a change. Needless to say, music therapy is a thing. And according to the medically reviewed article, Art Therapy and Music Therapy for Addiction Treatment, it can help people in addiction through a variety of ways, such as promoting positive emotions, reducing depression, anxiety, stress, and anger. It can help with relaxation, help with relapse prevention, that's a big one, and increase willingness to seek treatment, which I thought was really interesting because that's tied to people who tend to seek out non-traditional methods of recovery. A lot of the time, music therapy seems to be one of the first that they look towards. There's a difference between music therapy, which is a clinical and evidence-based use of music to accomplish individualized goals in a therapeutic setting, rather than just like simply listening to music, which might not necessarily have the same beneficial effects as something more formal like music therapy. I don't know, I feel like it kind of goes without saying that if psychiatrists and psychologists and other experts in the fields of therapy or mental health or whatever decided to create an entire form of treatment based around the idea of music, then it's a pretty good chance that it has healing properties in and of itself without all the sciencey stuff attached to it. Then again, to play devil's advocate, because I am a Libra, one study done titled Effects of Music Therapy and Music-Based Interventions in the Treatment of Substance Use Disorders, a Systematic Review, actually found no consensus regarding the effects of music-based therapy or music-based interventions for patients with substance abuse issues from a systematic standpoint, meaning as a whole. So basically they looked at all the studies that were available and then came to this conclusion. It did not seem to mention another article by the Journal of Music and Science, which actually looks at music as a valid form of treatment for addiction when it's specifically paired with community aspects. In it, they define addiction more or less as psychosocial dislocation, aka a very fancy way to say feelings of isolation and loneliness. And it kind of makes me think back to that like really popular quote by Johann Hari, the opposite of addiction is not sobriety, it's actually connection, human connection. In the study, they found that when done in a group, whether it's being listened to like at a live event or played, like if you're jamming, I guess, social cohesion is generated, which can in turn mitigate the social dislocation or disconnection, aka that feeling of isolation and loneliness that arguably is at the root of addiction. Finally, a Psychology Today article stated that music has the ability to evoke emotions, powerful emotions, and even make physical body reactions such as chills. Even more, that music can lead to the creation of pleasurable neurotransmitters that people in addiction often lack or have a weird kind of unstable relationship with, such as dopamine. Not to mention, music is an easy and accessible way to alter your mood positively and to release stress. Whereas music therapy might not be available to everybody based on like cost and healthcare and things like that. Creating music or listening to music is pretty much available to everybody and anyone aside from people who might live with like hearing disabilities, which I'm sure that there are other alternatives that are kind of within the realm of art therapies that could be useful for them as well, but I would have to do more research before I speak on that. So the last thing is, it's really important to keep in mind that music can evoke powerful emotions. That's not to say that it can just evoke positive, powerful emotions. So just as much as it could be healing, it could also be triggering or damaging depending on the situation. Important to be armed with this information, especially if you're in early sobriety, about like which types of music might either like bring up some emotions that you're not quite ready to deal with, might trigger you to think back to a time in your life where you were active. There might be some very real negative consequences of, for instance, listening to an album that you loved while you were in active addiction, because it might kind of stir up a lot of stuff that could potentially lead to a relapse or a slip. I've definitely had times where I've listened to like certain club music and I was in a certain situation, like if I was around a big group of people or like with friends, it felt very familiar to like pre-gaming. It felt very familiar to being at a bar. And yeah, it had definitely caused some like very triggering emotions for me. So just keep in mind that it could stir up some shit. But overall, like it can definitely be a power for good as well. And it can definitely help us to heal. I wouldn't say that it can be, I definitely wouldn't call it like a cure-all by any means. I don't think anything is a cure-all for sobriety, but it's certainly accessible, adaptable, and highly individualized tool that we can use and experiment with. So I definitely suggest that you guys do a little experimentation and see whether or not music is something that can help you in your sobriety. Ton more research on this. I highly suggest that you guys go check that out if you're interested in this topic. I could make a much longer video on this, but honestly, I would need a lot more time in my hands. All the studies that I looked at is in the description of this video. If you're in the process of searching for a like formal addiction treatment program and you don't feel 100% comfortable like going to a traditional route, or you've tried it and it hasn't worked for you, which is perfectly fine, maybe consider music therapy or looking at programs that integrate that. It was definitely helpful on my journey, at least when I was in rehab. In the meantime, here is my sober tip for the day, and it is to create sobriety playlists. I've always done this in an informal kind of way, but recently started doing it much more consciously because I've made my private Spotify playlists another perk for my patrons, so I put a lot more thought and energy into them lately. Each playlist can kind of have a theme that you can address with the music that you're putting in it. Like I have ones that are just about like codependency, or ones that just remind me of my time spent in active addiction, or songs that really remind me of like the essence of recovery, or like sad songs that make me want to cry. And the key to doing this in a way that will actually be like helpful for you is to almost make it a meditation of sorts. Really listen to the sounds, really listen to the beats, really listen to the lyrics if there are any, and let yourself get lost in the music, and then be very conscious about which ones you're choosing to put on the playlist. Kind of make a project out of it. Okay, so my camera shut down because it overheated, so I'm gonna close out the rest of this video on my iPhone. Probably very noticeable change in quality. Yeah, so if you decide to make your sobriety playlist, you can have them for yourselves, you can share them with a friend. You can use so many different music streaming services to do this. Like I like Spotify, but obviously you can do it on YouTube too. Try it out and see if it works for you. Thank you guys so much for watching. As always, I'm very appreciative of your audienceship. If you've made it this far, consider throwing me a like on this video, sharing it with a friend, or subscribing to the channel. Comment below which songs or albums have helped you the most to get through something in or out of sobriety. It's been real, it's been fun, and it's been real fun. Okay guys, bye.